All right, so let's go ahead and create a new map. I'm going to use just the same aspect ratio as with this one, which is 3 by 4. That's going to be portrait or your regular A4 paper. So if I just go create new map, and you know what? It doesn't really matter which style that you end up using to make this with because there is not an official cosmology. This is a masterclass. So what I would recommend is just kind of picking whichever one that works best for you. You could do fantasy battle maps or you could do sci-fi. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go ahead and just choose the style. I'm going to go with Ultra 4K because I want to work with some nice editing resolution. If some of you, I've noticed in support that some people were struggling with loading their maps in 4K, they could only load it in 2K. If you are having that problem and you have Windows, download that desktop app off the site, and then that should help you to be able to load your map now in 4K editing resolution. There was quite a few of those I saw in support. So those of you who might be struggling here with that, download that app, okay? I'm just going to label it Cosmology Map. I'm not going to give it really any kind of name yet. Maybe we'll come up with some lore. If people have ideas for lore in the chat as we go along, feel free to put that in the chat. Maybe we can incorporate that. I love taking suggestions from the chat, so don't be afraid to do that. So we got our Ultra 4K. We're going to switch to portrait, 30 by 40, what's called 3 by 4. We're going to create that and let that pop up. And the first thing that we'll do is we'll create this kind of grid. You notice in that image that the people voted on YouTube, it has like a grid at the bottom. It was isometric. Why don't we also make a grid similar to that? But why don't we not make it isometric? Why don't we do something different? And I'll show you how to put that together. We're going to end up using the shape tool, and we're going to make maybe we could create this sense of perspective by putting some perspective point into that grid. What I would do first is I would turn the grid on. The grid is going to be helpful when I want to snap things to the grid. Because I am making this interesting grid shape at the base of the map, I should have the grid on so that I can snap to it to make sure that my perspective and my points are correct. So I'll show you how to put that together. I got that grid on. You can change the grid by just simply selecting it, and then you'll see the options here. Some of you have probably wondered, where is the grid? It was originally on this left side, down around here somewhere. It has moved to the right side. Don't get confused. It's just right here. You can turn it on and off by just clicking that simple eyeball right there. You notice that it turns on and off, and you can make the adjustments simply by doing this. And what's really nice, unlike before, is that you can move that grid anywhere you want. You can move any layer you want. Like maybe I want to move the objects below the background, or I want to move the grid to the very top above everything. That's what's so nice about the new 2.0 layer system, is you can move any layer that you want, move them in any order, so that way you can kind of get the setup the way that you want. So that's very helpful, I feel. Now that grid's on, I might want to make some adjustments. The grid is let's maybe switch it over to 15 by 20. See, now the squares are a little bit bigger. That should be easier to work with, especially if I'm counting how many grid pieces in between. It's a little bit harder when you have a lot. So with this little bit larger celled grid, it should be a little bit easier for me now to kind of count spaces and put things together. I'm also going to do some quick adjustments, like change the color to white, because I'm going to change the background to like a black color or maybe some kind of space color. So I'll go over here to the brush tool. And when I select the brush tool, you notice in the right panel here that it goes straight to the background, and that's because it's the only paintable layer that I have there. But you can add as many paintable brush layers as you want by just going up to the top, go add layer, brush layer, and then there you go. So you can have as many as you want, but when you do select the brush tool, if this is the only one you have, it should select this one. Otherwise, you have to select which brush layer you want to select to be painting on, okay? So we'll go over that. Let's go into the catalog and choose maybe some outer space. Texture, I would say sci-fi battle maps is probably the best choice. If you go into that left panel here, where in the catalog, you'll see it has all the different styles. I click sci-fi map. You can scroll down, or you can just type in space. It doesn't really matter, whichever one. You can also just type in space like this. And there's some outer space. You notice that there's some more red. There's a green space one, and there's a blue space one. You know what? Let's go with purple. And all I'm going to do is just click fill, and it will fill up the entire thing with that. So now that I have that done, that looks great. It does pop out a little bit with the grid, so why don't I just go ahead and bring the grid down a little bit? This way it's not burning my eyeballs out a little bit. There we go. Now I have that. Next, I'm going to go over to Shape Tool. Remember, we're going to create this grid. And the grid, this little grid that I'm going to be creating, it's going to act as maybe how to determine scale. Maybe we want to put some numbers on the scale to determine how many light years is where each little square inside the grid is. So we can go over all of that. What I want to do now is I'm going to choose a stroke. I'm not going to choose any fill. I'm going to choose a color that works well with this red color. It seems more purplish than red to me, honestly. And since it has purple in it, and purple is a mix of blue and red, what would contrast well is the color blue, a lighter color, against that darker purple color, right? A warm and a cool color. So I think that should create some nice contrast. So why don't I choose a blue color like this? That looks good. And then why don't I also choose maybe a shadow for it? And why don't I just choose like a lighter blue for the shadow? And then what I'll do is I'll turn snap to grid like this, and then I'll show you how this works. I'll go right here. I'm going to choose my pen. The pen is going to allow me to just click and snap like this, because I have snap to grid. See how I have that together? I'm just going to place it down real quick just to see what it looks like. Okay. So one thing I might want to consider doing is boosting up that shadow. So let's bring the intensity up. There we go. Let's make the shadow a little bit bigger. Bump that up a little bit. That looks good. Okay. Now that that looks good, why don't we then start to create that little grid thing? So why don't we start here? We'll move, let's go like this. 2 in this way, 3 in. Oopsie, I'm using the wrong one. I want to use the shape. Thank you. What makes a cosmology map useful to me is just helpful for me as a DM. Like if you have a space, if you have like a space RPG, then you might want to use it for fantasy. It might just be for your own personal reference. It might be for your own world building needs. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to have one. I personally just find them useful and just fun to make. Okay, I'm going to go to add here like this. You notice how I created some perspective by going inward 3 tiles and then 1 tile here at the front, creating this sense of perspective, right? That makes it more interesting. And then from there, I want to create maybe some grid spaces. If you're not happy with this, maybe you want to have it be a little bit wider. Like this one's kind of, then maybe I want to show more. I could do this. Let's go here and then maybe go like this. Maybe perhaps this works better. This does give us a little bit more room to work with instead of this one. I think that does work. Let's go with, I don't know, I kind of like them both. Or what I could do is have them both, right? Like maybe I want to have like a series of these going upward to kind of show the different types of dimensions. So whatever you feel is best. I think this works fairly well. Lots of space here. Why don't we also then go ahead and add in the lines for the grid? And what I'll do is I'll just switch that blue line over to dashed dotted lines, and then I'll switch over to maybe making them square instead of circular. And then I can just snap to grid like this. And I might make some adjustments. Like for instance, let's maybe change the gap length between these. There we go. Change the gap length. Why don't we also bring the opacity down just a little bit? There we go. That looks good. And then I can go in like this. Now I'll go ahead and turn snap to grid off. I don't really need that right now. And I'll just use the grid as my guide. If you hold down Control, you'll be able to snap to certain degrees. So I'll just go ahead and snap that right to there. Put another one there. Snap this one to here like this. Snap another one here like this. Okay. So that works out fairly well in the grid. But this next part is a little trickier, right? Because you're going with some perspective here. So what I'll normally do is I'll go like this, just to line it up right there. Take that one piece, and it's closest to it, so I'll rotate it just a little bit. And what I do is you only need to do one side at a time. Now we could change it up also and just have these get a little bit smaller the further we get away. So why don't we also do that, because that's how perspective would probably work a little bit. So this would probably be a little bit bigger. This one, we'll put this at the full size here like this. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and I'll use that again. This time I'll make it just a little bit thinner than the next one. So just shift here, a little bit thinner on that one. And then I'll make it even thinner on the next one. So let's go here. And then we'll do it again. Oopsie, you know, that's a little too much. Let's go a little bit up, a little bit more this way. There we go, that looks good. And then we're just gonna keep slowly making our grid. Let's go down a little bit more. Just wanna make them a little bit smaller. I wanna create this sense of perspective. So to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and just make each one of these a little bit closer together each time. Let's try this one. Here we go. That looks about right. And then what about there? Looks good. There we go. That looks right. Okay. And then all I have to do is I only have to make one side of the grid. And what I can do is I'll go ahead and push this together like this. I want it to be a little bit bigger the closer I get. Let's do the next one like this, a little bit more inward. That looks good. And then another one just like this, a little bit more inward like that. And you know what? Things are a little off here, so let's fix that. Get some spacing in between this one. There we go. Just trying to get them to get the spacing right here. This one can go in a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and lock this. I'm going to go ahead and lock those, and I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. I'm going to create a group, create group. I'm going to copy and paste it. And now all I have to do is just flip this little flip horizontal piece. And then there you go. Now I have this, and all I have to do is just line it up properly. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and unselect everything like this. I'm just going to take a look at it real quick to make sure that it looks okay. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. I think overall that looks good. So I'll select everything, create group, and we're going to call it the board. Create. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this object layer right here, and I'm going to rename this layer, and I'm going to call this the grid, or we can call it the board. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the grid off now because I don't really need it anymore. Now, if you look carefully, now we have our little kind of space grid here. We can kind of move it around wherever we want it to be. Maybe you want it to be higher up. Maybe you want it to be further down. Remember, the blue works well with that purple because blue and red make purple. So blue and red will work well together, or blue and purple will work well together. And it also contrasts between the warmer purple and the cooler blue. Remember, I have this rule about using contrasts to make your piece pop out more. What I also do is maybe I'll just like scale it up to make it a little bit bigger so it takes up more room. I think that looks good. There we go. All right. Okay, I think overall that looks good. We have the board there. Why don't we go ahead and create another layer above that? And that next layer is going to be everything on top of the grid. And what's going to be helpful putting on a separate layer is because I won't accidentally place a planet or a stamp ever below that grid because I'm going to be using a different object layer for those stamps. So I won't ever have to accidentally be paying attention to all the different layers within that one object layer. That's just going to make your life a lot easier. Okay, so I'll go ahead, select this object layer right here, go to add layer, just go object layer, and we're going to call this planets. Okay. Oops, if I can spell planets correctly. Planets, there we go. Okay, I'm going to let that auto-save real quick, and then I'm going to go into another map, and I'm going to copy and paste some planets and some celestial bodies, things that I've already made, and I'll put them on here. After that, I'll show you how to make your own planets as well. So it's saved. I'm going to go back to my maps, or back to the folder here. I'm going to go ahead and open up this one right here, this Cosmology template. And once that opens up, I'll go ahead and I'm just going to copy and paste all those groups with all those planets in there. I'll move them off to the side, and then I will go ahead and place them in the order that I kind of want. So we'll let this load real quick and we'll get to that. Now, every single one of these should be its own group. So let me see, what are these right here, those lines? Why don't we just go ahead and remove all of that? Let's just go with select only groups. Or let's see, your groups. There we go. I should be able to, let's select every single one of these. Let's go ahead and just copy and paste. Let me just make sure that that does work. Does it copy and paste? It does. Great. Okay. So you're going to go Control C, Control C. I'm just going to press Control C a couple times. Then I'm going to go back out. No need to save it. And then I'm going to go back into the map I was just on. This one right here. I'll let that load. And then we're going to Control V. And that will paste those stamps that I just copied off that one map onto the current map. And then this way, we won't have to make a whole bunch of planets. So if I just go to V here and kind of select this, getting some weird stuff going on there. That's okay if that happens, not a problem. We're going to go over here to the recovery tool. We're going to start our recovery. Look at that, recovery done, good as new. Problem resolved there. Oop, I might have to go to recovery again. Let's go to recovery. Oop, not sure why my planets got all goofed up there. That's okay, we're going to copy and paste, we're going to delete. We're going to do that again real quick. Here we go. I'm not sure why they didn't translate properly. Let me go to recovery here. Not wanting to work. Well, that's okay. We got some of them to work. Not a problem. There we go. We've got to push them off to the side here. Looks like they all got centered somehow. I'm not sure how that happened, but it does. Little buggy there, but that's okay. As long as it worked, right? We still have our planets here that we can use. I'm just going to put them off to the side here so I can kind of work with them. And I'll show you how to make all of these as well. So they're actually really, really easy to make. It just requires a little bit of creativity. And I'll show you how to put them together. I'm not sure why it bugged out like that. I'm assuming that this planet map, where these planets are on, that map is like a year old. So it's possible that it's just converted strangely. I'm not entirely sure what caused that. It's not too bad of a big deal there because we can just move everything to the side here. You notice I have a lot of different options for planets to choose from here that I've made. I'm going to go ahead and make one as well so you can kind of see that. I'm just going to put them all up to the side here. They're kind of out of the way. There we go. That looks good. All right, all my planets to the side. I'm going to go ahead and let it auto-save real quick. And then I'm going to show you, I'll show you how to make a planet itself. They're not complex, pretty easy stuff. We'll let this auto-save and we'll go ahead and jump into that. So to make a planet is not too complex. You're just going to go over to your shape tool or just press the R key. I would choose a stroke, just to use a solid white color line. That works just fine. Just do that. And as for fill, it's whatever your planet that you're trying to make. Okay, so if you were making a sun, perhaps, maybe it wouldn't hurt to use like a lava texture. Something like this lava texture right here. So if I go in here, I'm going to go ahead and choose circle, like this. And now I have this kind of lava right here. I can change the scale that I want. I can change the color too. Maybe I want to use a yellowish color instead. We'll turn off that shadow as well, so there's no shadow there. So maybe I have a simple sun, and there's no shadows for the sun, so you don't have to worry about that. But I can just copy and paste that. Maybe I want to make an actual planet, right? Well, maybe I want to make like, I don't know, maybe like a frozen planet of some kind. So I could just type in ice, like this. Maybe I have some ice right here. Maybe I want to switch the color over to a bluish color. Let's go with that blue color right there. Looks great. Okay. Now, maybe I want to add like a shadow, right, to it because I want to be able to show the shadow from this that's reflected off from the sun, right? I want cast from the sun. So how would I do that? I would just copy and paste this whole thing like this. I would turn off my stroke. I would switch the fill to the color black like this. You're going to then go back. You're going to go merge shapes, subtract like this. And then I'm going to create a circle like this. And you notice that what I did is I created a half circle or kind of a crescent shape right here like this. That kind of fits on there like this. I'm going to go ahead and just blur that real quick. I'm going to bring the opacity down a little bit like this. And then you're going to go ahead and just line this up. And I'm going to go and just scale it up just a little bit so it kind of fits. And there you go. Now you have your shadow. Now you can also create a light source as well. If you wanted to have like a more brighter light source, you could do that. I would just go choose the white color, go to add. I'm just going to create this white circular shape like this. I'm going to change that blend mode to overlay like this. And I'm going to go ahead and place that right here like this. I'm going to bring the opacity down. And let's go ahead and bring the opacity up just a little bit more. There we go. And now you have your light source and your shadow. Okay, so pretty easy stuff, right? It's just about making the planet shape and then creating the shadow and then creating the light source that reflects off of it. So then now I can just go ahead and create this group, call it a planet. Pretty easy stuff. And then wherever I put my sun at, this is just an example, I'm always going to be placing the sun, always going to have it be facing towards the light. Now, if you wanted to have the planet be like this, where the light source is in front, then you would make this whole thing, you don't need that shadow at all. You would simply bring the brightness down on down like this, and then remove that shadow because the light would be on the other side, right? So now you kind of get the general idea on how that works, right? So I've already got a sun already set up right here. So why don't I just go ahead and place a sun? Remember, I'm on my planet board instead of my board layer, right? So I'm going to go ahead and place the sun. And I can place it anywhere I want. Maybe I want it to make it more central like this. We'll make it fairly decent size. And you can make it any size that you want. Maybe you want it to be massive. Maybe you want it to be tiny. That's up to you, how you want to do it. So we'll go ahead and put that together. I'll make it somewhat central. It can be off just a little bit just to make it more interesting. And then I can start deciding what planets I want to put down on the board. First, what I'll generally do is I'll try to create like a little line of some kind that connects the planet down to the board itself. So wherever the line connects to the board, so I want to show that it's more central, then the line would stop more in the central part of the board, like this. And I'll go ahead and maybe bring the opacity up a little bit. Maybe I'll blur it a little bit. And let's go with no blur and just see what it looks like. There we go. And maybe I don't like that line. I can always make it a dashed line if I want. Something like this if you want, or like that if you want, just to kind of give an indicator of where it is on the board. I think right about there looks good. And I'm just going to use the same kind of setup that we already have in like our Milky Way. So like our closest planet to the sun is going to be probably one that is fiery and hot because it's just closest to the sun. So I could bring it over here. If I wanted to put it behind the sun, I could bring it down a layer. So it looks like it's behind the sun, like this in the distance. If you wanted to show that it was further away, you'd make it smaller. If you wanted to show that the planet was closer up, then you would scale it up. So it's scale that decides the distance part. So I'll go ahead and make this kind of a little bit smaller, and I'll kind of put it behind the sun like this. And then I can go ahead and another way to show where this is on the grid, like maybe I want to show how far away from the sun it is, I can use the grid here to decide. So if it was further away from the sun, I could put it right here. If it was closer to the sun, then I'd want to bring that dotted line, the marker on that grid, probably a little bit closer. So let's just say that it's close to the sun. So we'll go ahead and put it right there like that. And I'll go ahead and push that dotted line below like that. So now I have an idea where the sun is and where that closest planet, right? Let's go ahead and put another planet that's maybe the second closest one. It's not all hot. It's not necessarily all molten magma, like it's melting because it's so close to the planet. But this next one is the second closest. And maybe it's a desert planet. It has strong winds. It has solar flares hitting with it. It's not necessarily covered in magma or lava. It's a little bit further away. So instead, what it is more of a desert planet. Think more like Dune, right? So maybe I'll go in this kind of clockwise direction here. So I'll put another one down right here like this. I can make it put a little bit more this way. And then I'll go ahead and choose this line right here and go down to kind of show where it is, to see in proximity to how far away it is from the sun. So it kind of comes together like that. And so you're kind of getting the general idea as I start to place planets that are on the grid, right? And where they are. So we can go on to maybe the next planet that's not quite as far away. Maybe it's the third planet from the sun, so maybe a more Earth-like planet, something more like this, where you see that there is land on there as well as water. So let's maybe go ahead and use that one. Let's maybe bring this planet up a little bit bigger in size, just a little bit bigger than that desert planet. And then maybe I'll go ahead and put that one over here like this, a little bit further away, like that. And then I'll go ahead and take my line, just like I did before. And let's go ahead and place it right about here. And it's so far. And then I'll go ahead and just kind of move it around. I do not have a science background in the slightest bit, just so you know. So this is purely for aesthetics. I have no scientific background. So, and it is fantasy, so I don't want to mention any science or or astrophysics or anything like that because I don't know. I am purely a armchair, so it's I do not know all, but that's funny. I know how to make maps. How about that? Okay, so I think so far we're doing kind of good. I'm overall liking the aesthetic of this, and then we'll create the next tier kind of going up. So why don't we add maybe 2 or 3 more planets? And I want to make ones that are a little bit different. Like, for instance, there's this planet that has a ring in it. So why don't I go ahead and do that? And I'll make this kind of a gas giant. So I'll make this fairly large. It's bigger than the rest of the planets. It's not as big as the sun, but it's a fairly large planet. And maybe I want, because most of my planets are up here, why don't I move it a little bit further down and a little bit further away? So let's move it over to here like this. And then I'll go ahead and create the dotted line. And then maybe we'll also add an ice planet of some kind because it's going to be the furthest away. So there's this blue planet right here. So let's go ahead and make this a small planet. It's like kind of the furthest away from the sun. And to kind of show that depth, I'll go ahead and put it way over there like this. And I'll go ahead and put that dotted line in there. I want to show that it's very far away, so I'll put it just at the edge of the grid there. There we go. There we go. Like those rings, that looks good. And then why don't we add in maybe, let's add in another planet here. I think we have some unique ones. Like, for instance, this is like a bio one. Notice it's got tentacles. It's made of like kind of flesh. We also have this mechanical one. And then also, let's see what other ones that we have here. There's also this one that kind of has this hive look to it by using a sci-fi texture. I'm also going to rotate these a little bit to kind of make sure that they're facing. Notice that the shadows are facing the wrong way, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Shadows facing the right way. That one's facing the right way. Okay, shadow this way. There we go, good. Okay, just want to make sure I got the shadows right. Yeah, a mech planet would be cool. So maybe like, I like that idea. Whistle. So why don't we have like a moon that's like orbiting around this planet right here that's an artificial moon. It's mechanical. That would be kind of cool. Let's also add in like this kind of more mirror like world. Let me zoom it in. You can kind of see it has this kind of mirror kind of look to it. I think it's kind of an interesting looking planet. So why don't we go ahead and place that over here somewhere? Why don't we go ahead and place that one a little bit over here like this? Let me make sure that I get the light kind of facing the right way. And then I'll go ahead and put that together. We're approaching Alderaan. There we go. And let's put this in the outskirts. Like it's some strange planet that doesn't read. Just kind of an odd one. That's no moon. I love it. And then why don't we take some of these? I kind of like this one right here. Why don't we add in a couple more moons for a couple other planets? So for instance, why don't we put in kind of this strange moon right here? Like this. Why don't we also add in this flesh-like planet? I think that's a bad idea. Why don't we put it more over here like this? And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and remove the black shadow. And then I'll select the whole thing and just kind of bring the brightness down a little bit on this. There we go. And then I can kind of select everything that's kind of on it as well. And then just bring the brightness down a little bit. There we go. Okay. And I'll bring the scale down. We'll go and put that one right about, let's put that right about here. Oh yeah, I love that idea. That's a great idea. A star with tendrils. Ooh, that's creepy. Love that. Okay, let's go put that one right here like this. Just, I'm not, you can pick whichever order you want. I'm not using any type of like scientific, because your players are, most of your players are not going to be astrophysicists. So, and if they are, whew, lucky them and good luck making your cosmology, because that will be fun. I think when it comes to planets, that's good. Why don't we also, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the rest of these. I think we've done good there. I could add a series of moons probably if I wanted to, like a whole bunch of more moons. That might look good, but why don't we let it just autosave real quick? And then we'll do a couple more things to this, and then we'll add in some celestial bodies. We'll add in some, like I want to add in like nebulas and black holes. So we're going to go to another map and pick all those things up. One thing I could do real quick is to take a light source right out of Fantasy Battle Map style. I'll just go ahead and use this light source here. I'll use a big one. I'm going to put this up a layer. Let's go to layer 10 and just put this light source, just boom, right on top, just like that. And now I have this nice light source. It's really going to help to boost the lighting on that. You can even copy and paste another one if you wanted to, make it a little bit smaller and just place it right on top of that. And now you have some light source, because what we had before was the sun wasn't really emanating a lot of light. But now that we've added these light sources, it really, because the sun is super bright, right? It's radiating all this light and it's spreading all that light and radiation out, right? So we want to add a light source to really get that to pop out. So now that I've added my planets, my moons, you can add as many moons and planets as you want. I'm going to go out of this map and we're going to move over to the next one. And I'm going to open up these celestial bodies right here. You notice that I have like a nebula, a comet, pulsars, spiral galaxies, asteroid belts. All of these things are going to be very useful. So let's go ahead and open this up. I'll select everything and I'll go ahead and just copy and paste it. Hopefully it won't have that weird thing where they all kind of aligned into the center of each other. So we'll quickly load that up. And we'll go ahead and add these things, because there's a lot more that we could add to this. And maybe there's another layer that we want to add on top of this. Like maybe this is the mortal realm that we have here first. And then we can go from realm to realm, kind of just putting all these things together. So let me go ahead and just, oops, I see there's a couple of them here. Let's go ahead and copy those. Oops, there's a lot of them here. Let's go ahead and copy those. Copy, paste. I'm going to go ahead and delete those and then go to this object layer 2 here so they're all on the same layer. There we go. Perfect. And now I can just select all these groups. I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste. So I'm just going to Alt-C. I'm going to go out, and then we'll go back into the map here, load, and then we'll copy and paste those in. And then we'll strategically kind of place those things in there. Hey, thanks, Kinsbane. Yeah, glad you found it useful. I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can make a cosmology map. Like sometimes a cosmology map is not planets. Sometimes it's like planes. Sometimes it's realms. Sometimes it's like maybe a world tree. Like most of my inspiration for world maps comes from a couple things. One, just looking at sometimes stellar charts and maps and just gleaning information from them, looking at old charts, or even looking at mythology cosmology maps uh, like the Yggdrasil, the World Tree, or maybe you drew inspiration from Aztec or Mayan mythology, whatever you're using it from. That's usually where I get my inspiration from, is those kind of things, so kind of helpful. And then we'll go back to planets here, and I'm just going to go load here, and then here are all of my pieces here. I'll just go ahead and bring the scale down. Looks like they loaded in a little better there. They were a little bizarre before. Let's go ahead and scale them down to a decent size. So one thing I might want to do is maybe have a black hole right here that kind of goes from one place to the other. So I'll go ahead and just scale this down and just show this is kind of far off in the distance. Because if you were anywhere near a black hole of any kind, you would not survive. So let's put that far off in the distance, okay? There's also this kind of meteor belt right here. Why don't we kind of add this belt? I think that would be a nice choice. And why don't we kind of place it like right here like this, and maybe even kind of creating this sense of arch. Let's go ahead and put that belt. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this belt at. Maybe the best one would be Let's see. I think right here looks kind of good. I kind of like that right there. I think this one's a quasar. Why don't we go ahead and put this off into the distance here somewhere, like this. There's a couple other ones. Here's a nebula right here. Why don't we take this piece right here, and then we'll kind of place that somewhere over here. Let's go put that right about here. Let's go ahead and bring the opacity down just a little bit. There we go. And we'll put that there. Let's go ahead and put this one. This one looks good. Let's scale it up. Let's bring the opacity down just a little bit. There we go. And we'll kind of place that over to here. Let's just see where this would look best. I kind of like it right there. That looks okay. Let's also put like a couple comments. Not a bad idea. Why don't we go ahead and place maybe just a couple of them going like this at different sizes. Copy, paste. Let's make one a little bit bigger than the other. I mean, these are like planet size ones that could destroy could destroy a planet if it hit it. Oh, there's some more asteroids kind of just floating around here. I think it's not a bad idea. Why don't we move those maybe over to some negative space over here? Why don't we move it over to here? That looks good. Okay. We're going to keep adding stuff. I kind of like this blue one right here. Why don't we make this a little bit smaller and kind of place that just right over here in the corner? I'm just trying to kind of balance it out to make it more interesting. Let's see here. What else do we have? You know what? Why don't we also remove this light right here? And I'm just going to go ahead and scale this way up like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and place this. Let's place it below the planet. Let's bring the opacity down a little bit. There we go. And then we have a little bit of kind of like swirl going on there. I could go this way, could go that way. We could flip it and have it be this way, whichever one you guys might think is best. I think that looks okay. I don't want it to be like perfectly like that. I kind of want to rotate it a little bit. That way it kind of offsets, make it a little bit more interesting. This is like a whirl type of stamp right here. It's called a whirlpool. That's what I'm using there, just so you know. I could change the height a little bit just to kind of get the swirl a little bit better there, like that. That looks good. Okay. And why don't we just edit it one more time? Let's open this up, grab that whirlpool real quick, and let's play with the dimensions a little bit more. I'll change the width. There we go, a little bit wider. Change the height. There we go. That looks good. Okay. And now we have kind of this nice spiral stuff going on here. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and add in maybe a couple of these stars and things right over here, kind of in the background. There we go. I think that's about it for now. I don't think we need to add a whole lot more. Let's go ahead and just delete the rest of these. That looks good. And now we have our first kind of layer already kind of put together, right? So what we could do is we could take that same grid and put it above everything and create our next layer if we wanted to. In fact, why don't we just rename this, instead of planets, we'll call it the mortal realm. Okay, I hope you're all getting some inspiration for your cosmology maps, right? So we have our board, our mortal realm, and what we could do is we could select this board, copy and paste it, and then create another layer, another object layer, and call this board 2. We don't have to do this if you don't want to, but we could just copy and paste that next board and then put it right on top. And we could just scale it down a little bit like this. And then we can go ahead and create our next realm right on top of this one, right? So we can just kind of maybe place it right on top. I don't want to hide things too much. And then we have our next layer, and then we can kind of create some things on top of this. So why don't we maybe create like maybe an ethereal realm or like a firmament or something like that. So why don't we go into, oops, it's kind of glitchy a little bit. If it gets glitchy like that, it's just save and refresh the page. Like right here, I'll just go ahead and refresh the page like this. I'll just go ahead and log back in real quick. Okay, we'll go back to folders here. We'll open it back up. We're going to load it. And if you just see that glitching happening just constantly, then just switch over to the desktop app, by the way, because that should resolve that issue, I hope. Is there a way to transport with transparency? Yes, absolutely. And we can show you that later. let's just finish what we're working on first, and then we'll get on that, okay? Okay, let's go back to board 2 here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of line this up to where it kind of matches. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line it up right about over the top of it. That looks good. And then I'll go ahead and create the next layer. And we're going to call this one the Ethereal Realm. Okay, so that Ethereal Realm, now it will be above this board. It will be above all this. See, I'm kind of building from the, not necessarily ground, but I'm building from the bottom up. You're kind of getting the general idea, right? So why don't we maybe create like these floating islands that like kind of live in space, that are in space. So why don't we go with like float? I think if we type in float, it should show up. Yeah, here we go, floating islands right here. And why don't we create like a series of like one major floating island, and then maybe we'll put some stuff on that island. And then maybe also, this is like, because it's the ethereal realm, like where the gods are or deities are, we'll have everything be much larger. Like, so in other words, instead of having like a planet, like I could use a fantasy world like structure, like a palace or something, because the gods are massive. Like they're the size of, you know, a moon or something like that. So it's okay to kind of go with this approach here. So I'll go and place that here. Now just know that these right here, they use like a clipping mask, by the way. And I'm not so sure that it will pick up the clipping mask. You'll just have to paint right on top of it. So let me just verify that real quick. Yeah, it goes right on top of that. Why don't we go ahead then and switch over to Fantasy World Textures, and I'll show you what I had in mind here. My gods are huge, so what I want to do is I'll go ahead and turn my softness off. I want to make sure that I have this lined up where I want it. Let's see here. I think right about there, kind of central, makes sense. Then I'll go into my brush here, and I'll just go ahead and paint inside of this right here to kind of paint that. So I'll put one floating island here, and then we'll put a series of floating islands. Or we could also, we don't have to use this particular piece. Like I could undo this and we can use a more interesting shape. Let's do this instead. I got an idea. Why don't we use this one right here? I kind of like this one a little bit more because it's a little bit more interesting shape. So why don't we use this one instead? And I'm going to put it up high enough to where I'm not hiding, I'm not obstructing the sun or these planets or anything. So it's high enough above it. Okay, let's go ahead and put that there. And then I'll go ahead and apply my texture like this. I'm just going to paint that in. And you could use a clipping mask to do this, but I'm not going to worry about that. Just going to go ahead and paint this in. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, Ink and Drink is wonderful. Definitely go check that out on Fridays. So incredibly helpful. So many good mentors and wonderful people there. Definitely go check it out. Okay, so we kind of have our first kind of little island. This is going to be central. We're going to put like maybe some kind of crystal palace or some kind of ethereal like palace or something to kind of represent like it's the ethereal realm. So we could use, I do believe there is a crystal type of palace or some kind in here. Let's just go through and look at our options here. I forgot which one it was. There it is right here. This one right here. This might work fairly well. Let's go ahead and place it. Let me go ahead and actually put another island on top of that. That would be kind of helpful. Like another island on top of that, like this. We'll go up a layer. Go like that. Let me see which one would fit. I think this one would probably fit the best. So let's go put that right there like that. Make sure that it's lined up properly. Somewhat centered would be nice. I'll have it overlap a little bit like this. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and add in that texture there. And then we'll go put our planet or put our location on top of it. Again, that will represent like the palace of the gods or whatever you want to call it, the home of the gods, whatever your pantheon is. Okay, and then I have to put this up a layer. There we go, that looks good. And you can tell this palace is huge. Look at the scale. When I put it up against a planet, it's huge. So you can see the scale, the size of the gods. They're quite large, right? That kind of makes sense. So we'll go ahead and put that there. That looks good. And then why don't we also add some other things? Like maybe we can take stuff from the fantasy regional style. There should be some effects that you'll find quite interesting. We just type in effects here. Why don't we use this red one right here? This looks good. Why don't we place this just right underneath of it? I'm going to change the color more to a bluish color. There we go. That looks good. And then I'll also change this one as well. Let's bring the brightness up. Change the hue to kind of get more of that blue color. That looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and move this down. Let's place that right there and place this one on top like that. That looks good. Okay, let me just scale it up right. Okay, that looks good. So there's like some kind of protective shield or a spell or something that kind of protects the palace from, like, I don't know, it could be cosmic radiation, invaders, whatever it might be, right? You don't have to use a summoning circle. There's a ton of effects that you could use. Like there's this little circle piece right here if you want to put that on top, or if you want to use this piece, you could use this little force field, this purple one, which works fairly well with the purple background. So I could just kind of go up a layer and just kind of put that there. If you want to do it that way instead, that looks better. We could push this down a layer and then put this, maybe it's underneath like that. That might work a little bit better. That looks good. Okay, yeah, I think that's okay. All right, yeah, that looks good. Let me go ahead and just get the shield down right. I would prefer a turtle to an island. Yeah, turtle makes sense. I don't know if we have a turtle stamp, but yeah, you could put anything that you wanted right here. Maybe there's a giant face. Maybe there's a giant planet that would be at the top there, or maybe there would be like like a Cthulhu-like creature at the very top with like creepy tendrils coming out. This could be whatever it is you kind of want it to, whatever the style that you're kind of going for. I think overall this kind of works so far. I'm liking that. We can go back into the effects here and kind of just add a couple more things. There's some rainbows, explosions. There's these swirly clouds. Like it might not be a bad idea to put this down at the very bottom. We'll just kind of rescale it like this. And then this can kind of represent like ethereal winds at the bottom there on the grid. You could do that. Yep, giant space turtles, super popular. Discworld, yep. Oh man, great stuff. Love it all, by the way. Big fan of Discworld, good stuff. So I'll just go ahead and scale this so this little cloud thing kind of shows up at the bottom there. We could even change the color of it if you wanted to, so it didn't fit that. So I could go like hue here and then kind of change it a little bit, maybe bump the contrast up. And then we'll bring the opacity down just a little bit. There we go. So I can kind of still see the grid underneath of it. There we go. That looks good. Good so far. Why don't we keep just adding? We're just going to keep adding a couple more things to it. There's a lot of cool effects in Fantasy Regional, so we could use a lot of these effects to kind of create some interesting things. So why don't we go ahead and put like a solar flare, or not a solar flare, but like a lens flare just right there on the corner of the shield. That would be a nice little touch. Why don't we also just use this kind of red kind of piece right here? Why don't we put that right there like that? Let's bring it down a layer. There we go. So it kind of shoots like this beam out of it. Why don't we change that color as well? Let's go with a, I think that color looks good. That looks good. Yeah, I like that. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, I'm liking the overall design. It looks good so far. Why don't we also add in some constellations in the background, and then we can add maybe one more thing at the top, the very, very top here. Maybe we can even rescale the map to fit maybe a couple more things. Like maybe we want to create like above the ethereal realm is like another realm that's like the beyond, the great beyond, which is something that not even the gods know about, right? Maybe there's some eldritch god that lives in the great beyond, furthest away. And this doesn't necessarily, the order in which we have the map doesn't necessarily mean a hierarchy. It could just simply mean they're separate realms. So why don't we do that actually? Let's create that another realm above that's going to have like a Cthulhu kind of creature at the top. I think that would be more interesting. So why don't we go to resize the map? I'm going to also make sure I have snap to grid on. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of make this a little bit bigger. Let's create a little bit more room at the bottom for like maybe a title. And then why don't we make a little bit more room at the top for like an eldritch like creature that's maybe hidden in the shadows somewhere. And we can kind of create the outline of light, make it interesting. So why don't we do this? So we'll go ahead and scale it up just a little bit more. So I have some room here at the top for another level. And I'm going to go ahead and click confirm. I'm going to click this little box right here. That means that it won't remove any of all the objects that are off screen. There's none there, but I just kind of click it off for myself. We're going to go ahead and save and proceed. What it will do is it will save that older map, the map that I just worked on, and we'll create a new map with the resized dimensions. And that's going to open up. And then we'll go ahead and create like this Eldritch like creature at the top. And then we can add some details in the background. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go over to board 2. I'm simply going to copy and paste this board. And I'm going to go up to the ethereal realm, add object, and we're going to go to board 3. Enter. There we go. I'm going to copy and paste. Oop, I forgot. When you, there is a bug right now that when you resize, the keyboard stops working for some reason. I thought I already mentioned this to the devs. I'm surprised that it hasn't been fixed yet. But if you are doing a resize and that happens, just save and then refresh the page. All right, we'll let that open up. Okay, great. We'll go here to board 2, copy, paste, board 3, put that right on top, and I'll scale it down like this. I'm going to scale it down like that, and we'll put it right on top. And then we have this last layer right here. I'm going to put it higher up like this so you don't kind of lose it. I don't think we're hiring at the moment, though. I can ask. Okay, and this is going to be our last little layer. And what this is doing is this grid is doing is kind of showing us that they're different planes, right? Like you have this bottom plane, a middle plane that's like the gods with their giant scale. We'll add more details to it. And then we'll add this kind of eldritch creature at the top. So I'll go ahead and add one more layer, and I'm going to call this like the Beyond or Eldritch layer or whatever you want to call it, right? So we'll call this the Beyond. Oopsie, we'll go ahead and rename that. The Beyond with my D, there we go. And now I can start doing that. And what I'll probably do, which might be helpful, is just go to Fantasy Battle Maps, and there should be some like sea creatures that might work well. For instance, we could use, I do believe there are like this octopus right here. This might work fairly well. What we might want to consider doing is just, I'm going to turn off my shadow real quick. So we'll go custom no shadow on that. And then what I should consider doing is I could make it all black. And then I'm going to go over to my shadow, custom object shadow. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything is set to 0. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose like maybe a purple outline like this. And now what this purple outline does is this purple shadow is it creates an outline of the stamp while having these tendrils at the top. So that's kind of helpful. So I'll place that there right on top like this. There's this giant eldritch-like creature. It's huge, right? See how it's like bigger than a planet? It's bigger than a sun. It's huge, right? So this would be like maybe a planet or a sun-devouring eldritch creature that is trapped away in this third dimension, this other dimension away, right? So that's a good start. Why don't we also maybe add some things, like maybe add like an eye of some kind? So we have these eyes right here. Might not be a bad idea to maybe throw in like a creepy eye like this. So we maybe want to put it down here at the bottom like this. Got this kind of creepy eye going on like that. Why don't we also bring the brightness down a little bit so that way it's not too bright. There we go. Well, we want to bring the brightness up a little bit more. I want it to show a little bit. So let's maybe bring it up a little bit more, maybe around 40. Let's go with 50 something. That looks about right. And I'll kind of rotate it a little bit like this. Let's actually flip it facing that way. There we go. A little bit better. There we go. And you kind of have this eye of this eldritch creature kind of hanging out above here. And what we might want to do is maybe throw in some debris. If it's a planet-devouring creature, maybe we want to show that it devours planets and suns and things like that. So to show that, why don't we like take some of these floating island pieces that we have. Let's go and type in float again. Oh, not flat, float. Why don't we take these gray floating rocks and we're just going to place like a bunch of them around it to kind of represent like the debris from the planets that it's kind of destroyed in this realm. Okay, and we'll kind of scale, bring different sizes up, maybe make some bigger ones to represent they're kind of closer, and then some really tiny ones to represent they're kind of further back. And some tricks that we can do to kind of show that things are further back and closer is we can select these rocks right here that are kind of smaller and in the background. We're just going to bring the brightness down, and it's going to create this illusion that it's further behind. So that means these stones that are in the front, we want to bring the brightness up, right? And then these middle stones right here can be just a teeny bit darker to kind of represent this sense of depth. You see now that we have this sense of depth, the rocks that are closest to us are bigger and brighter. The rocks that are further away and behind the creature are going to be darker and smaller, right? So now that we have like this Eldritch kind of like creature, what we'll do is I want to show that the planet was destroyed. So if I rotate them all in these different directions, it'll kind of give this illusion that they've all been floating and moving around. I don't want them all facing the same direction. So I'm just going to randomly select them and just start rotating them in these different directions to kind of give it this sense of destruction, right? They're all facing the same way or in the same rotation. It kind of has this sense of order. I want to create this sense of chaos and destruction. So rotating those stones should help to kind of do that a little bit. So that looks good. I'll put some in front and I'll also put some behind as well. So why don't I go down a layer? So there's someone behind it. Let's put another one like there behind it. That looks good. Why don't we put another one in front of it like this, copy and paste. One in the front like this. Why don't we place another one in the front like that? There we go. Have them overlap. That will help to finalize the sense of depth that we have. Some behind it, some in the front. Overlapping is how you create depth. So now we have this nice overlap of this nice eldritch kind of creature, kind of eyeballing the divine realm, wanting to go attack and destroy the ethereal realm and then make its way to the mortal realm where there's all these planets. Yummy, yummy, nummy, nummy food for that eldritch horror creature. You know, every creature deserves a warm meal, even eldritch creatures. So you just can't really blame them, right, for wanting to go down to the mortal realm and just kind of gobble up those nummy planet snacks. So I really don't blame him. You know, cut the guy some slack, okay? All right, well, let's just take a step back and kind of just look at it where I am at for time. We've gone about an hour. I overall like the look of it. Some things we might want to do is just add in some real quick. Let's add in some like constellations in the background just to make it a little bit more interesting. So why don't we go back into here? We're gonna go type in these little creatures right here will work great. So why don't we use a couple of these? So let's just go ahead and place a couple down. Let's add in like a griffin. Let's add in an octopus creature. Why don't we add in a scorpion? Let's add in an ox. Let's add in a wolf. And then why don't we also include a unicorn? I think that sounds good. Okay. Now every single one of these, what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of scale them up and kind of just rotate them where I want them to be. So I'll place one here. Let's place one right here. Let's go place one back there. Let's place the unicorn like maybe right here. Let's maybe have it facing the other way. Rotate, have it go that way. That looks good. And I'll put that there. Okay, that looks good. And then from here, what I will do is I will select every single one of these. And I'm going to go with that same technique that I did with that with this thing right here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and, well, actually, let's go with blend mode. Let's go with luminosity. Let's bring the brightness down a little bit. There we go. And then why don't I also just carefully go ahead and add an object shadow. So object shadow. Why don't we use a very light kind of like pink or purple light color? Let's bring the blur down a little bit. And then I'll have these kind of like constellations kind of popping out a little bit in the background. Let's go ahead and move that one to over there. Let's push this one over to here maybe. Let's maybe face this one facing this way like that. That looks good. Rotate that one. There we go. Okay, so I got some constellations here. I want to rotate them, move them around so that they kind of look good. Let's put one over to here. That one goes there. Let's rotate this one a little bit. It's okay to have them facing in different directions and stuff, make it a little bit more interesting. So now I have some constellations there. That looks good. I think what I should also do is maybe throw in some light sources as well. A light source, you'd be surprised what you can pull off with light sources. So let's go ahead and just return this to the normal hue. This is an orange light right here. And then I can go over to my hue here, and maybe I can add like a purple light that maybe goes like on top right here. We can change the blend mode to maybe overlay. Let me just return that, put that over. You can see how it made that pop out a little bit more. Let's go copy paste. Let's take that same purple type color. Let's go bring it up a layer. And then I'll go ahead and place that. Why don't I put it on top? Why don't we go through the blend modes here? Sometimes it's fun just to play with blend modes. We have darken, we have multiply, color burn. Oh, I kind of like that color burn. See what happens when I put that together? It has this kind of eerie, like purplish kind of glow that I kind of like. That looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and add another light source. Let's maybe change the hue to this bluish color. I kind of like this color burn. This kind of has a nice kind of effect to it. I kind of like that. So why don't we kind of just place that blue with a color burn just right there like that to get that to kind of pop out more. That looks good. And then why don't we add in just a couple more light sources to really get this to kind of pop out a bit more, and then we're going to call it good. Let's go ahead back to normal. Let's go ahead and put a little light source just right on the eyeball itself, right there like that, and then we'll go through the blend modes and kind of just play with that real quick, see which one looks best for it. We could go with hard light. Let's go just play with a bunch of them until we get what we're kind of looking for. Ooh, I kind of like that color dodge right there. That looks good. Let's maybe scale it down to where the light is just right about there. There we go. Okay, that looks good. I think I want to add just a couple more things. Let's go to fantasy regional. There's some other effects that I might want to consider adding that are nice, like this one right here, this kind of like snow or rain. I kind of like this. Why don't I kind of place that like right here, kind of like that. And what I'll do is I'll copy and paste and then go back to the ethereal realm, copy, paste. And I'm going to go ahead and place these right here. And maybe this can kind of represent like energy that's kind of coming off of that circle. I think that looks good. Let's go back to the beyond. Let's go ahead and maybe take some of this snow right here. And we can kind of use this to kind of represent like debris. So why don't I just place a couple of these, like wherever there is the rocks. This can represent smaller space particles, dust. And let's also make sure to place these in front of the creature as well. So it looks like that. And then I'll also put some of that behind the creature as well. So that way it overlaps. There we go. So now we have some nice kind of Eldritch-like creature, and we have our various levels here. Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think you guys get the general idea on kind of how to put this kind of cosmology map together. Just know that there's so many different ways that you can do this. You do not have to make a grid like this. You could make a circular grid. You could make octagon shapes, whatever you want. There's just so many different ways to make a cosmology map that I can't even describe how many ways that you can do it. When I go onto the Google search engine or whatever search engine I'm using, maybe it's DuckDuckGo, whatever it might be, and I look up cosmology maps, I just notice that there is just so many variations, so many different ways that you can make these. So this is kind of just one way to make a cosmology map. Maybe next month we can do another, maybe not next month, but maybe near the end of the year we can do another cosmology map. If you guys ever need help with making a cosmology map, you can always reach out to me or mentors on our Discord server. If you haven't joined yet, I totally recommend it.